that we covered this week, which was originality. So Sarah and I are doing a 4-part series on the podcast where we dive into some of the soft skills that the World Economic Forum say are going to be most important for all of us. There is my screen. That took about 30 seconds. Going to be most important for all of us over the next sort of couple of years for us to focus on. So we went through that list and we thought, what would we like to learn a bit more about? What would we like to talk about on the podcast? So you know, the topics we're going to talk about, the first one this week was originality. The one we're doing next week is on critical thinking. We've got one on social influence. I'm reading a very academic book on it at the moment. It might not be my recommended read. I'm trying very hard to get some insight for all of you. And then we've got the episode on stress tolerance as well. So that's the 4 episodes. And for each of these episodes, Sarah and I are taking a different book on the topic. We're both sort of reading it and reviewing it and trying to pull out the ideas and insights. And then we talk about it sort of live with each other. So we sort of, there's this, someone in our community ages ago said that curiosity is when you collect the dots and connect the dots. So we sort of collect the dots separately by reading these books. And then we connect the dots on the podcast when we talk about, oh, that's interesting or that's different. So that's the plan. Slightly different from our sort of normal way of doing it. Let me know who listened. What is the critical thinking book? Julia, should I spoil the surprise? I'm not sure. You'll find out next week. Maybe I'll let you know. These are the 2 that we read for the podcast this week on originality. So I read Adam Grant's book called Originals. Seemed like a good title to do. And Sarah read Corporate Rebels. They were the 2 books that we ended up reviewing and talking about on the podcast. I listened, Brilliant Cat, adding the books, but on a book ban at the moment. Well, funnily enough, the book that I do pick for critical thinking next week was one that I already had on my shelf because I was a bit like, I don't want to buy another book. And the book that I am now reading for social influence is a free PDF. But I'm not sure whether it's one of those ones that's allowed to be free. Like I found the book online for free. So I don't know whether I'm being naughty reading it for free, but it's like £40 on Amazon. So I'm reading it. Anyone else that managed to read it? I'm hoping you can see my screen, by the way. Sarah D, can you give me a thumbs up that my screen is okay? Brilliant, thank you. Anyone else that loved it? Rima says, what is the difference between PodPlus and Monday Career Workshop? I don't know, Rima. I don't know what Monday Career Workshop you were in. We only do career workshops with companies. Oh, do you mean the LinkedIn live sessions that we've been doing? That might mean that. So for January, we're doing something called Squiggly Career Clinic, which is more of a Q&A. So if that's what you mean, Rima, PodPlus is about whatever we've covered on a podcast. We do it every week. The LinkedIn Live Squiggly Careers Clinic is just for January to make sure that we give people a bit of support during what can generally be a bit of a tough month of work. So that's the difference. Brilliant, no problem. Okay, so let's get started in terms of some of the insights that we gleaned whilst we were doing our research. So this is a quote from Adam Grant about sort of what originality is. And it stuck with me because he said, originality is not a fixed trait, it's a free choice. And so it's this idea that originality is not something that somebody else has. Okay, they're like, oh, that person's so original, they wear like socks that are different. I do have a friend that always wears different socks on purpose, not because the washing's gone wrong, but it's not that. It's a skill, it's a free choice that we can all choose to bring originality to the way that we work and how we work, and it is a skill, so something that we can all choose to improve in. And I quite like that because I don't like this idea with some of these things that you've either got it or you've not. I think that's quite limiting. So that's the quote that resonated with me. I also really liked when Adam Grant was talking about originality, that it was not this idea of like everything that you do has to be brand new. Adam Grant's sort of positioning around originality is that actually, rather than it being about something being completely brand new, it's very often about building on something that already exists. So maybe something that someone else is doing in a different team or a different company or a different industry, and you sort of borrow that idea and build on it. And I thought that really resonated with me as well, because it sort of takes the pressure off like having to be completely original. It's almost sort of iteratively original, which I found sort of like an easier starting place. Dorothy added to my email thing. That's cool. So I thought we'd just reflect for a minute on you and your work today, because we all do different things in different places, and just to get kind of a bit of insight into sort of the breadth of our originality as a community. Have a think about your job, your work that you do today, and when do you think you demonstrate originality? Either this sort of, you build on something that other people have done, or maybe you do create something that's brand new, and head into chat and let me know. In your work today, when do you think you demonstrate some kind of originality in what you're doing? Let me know. I would say like we create quite a lot of assets and stuff obviously for podcasts, and even today on PodPlus, I'm sharing some stuff that I didn't talk about on the podcast. So that's probably like in our podcasts and in our sessions, or maybe in our writing, that's probably where my originality comes out. What have we got, everybody? Creating training courses, Maria says, brilliant. New ways of doing things, so tweaking and adapting a process. So the cat's kind of, there's something that already exists and I'm improving on it. Emma, implementing the new consumer duty, so regulations, brilliant. Katie's a career advisor to uni students. That's really interesting. So lots of my appointments require a level of originality. Yeah, almost like every conversation that you're having has a level of originality because everyone's bringing something different to it. Really interesting. Lucy in the team, Lucy says finding new ways to bring clarity and be more efficient. You do that brilliantly, Lucy. Victoria, creating training materials. I love that, Ellie. Analysis, new ways of looking at numbers. What might be interesting for you next week? I'm going to give the game away now. The book that I talk about in next week's critical thinking is called Framers, and it's all about how you use different frames to sort of change your thinking styles. And that could be quite useful for you, Ellie, when you're like new ways of looking at numbers. Loads of things. Got marketing campaigns from Farnaz, bite-sized learning, PR campaigns. Brilliant. Loads of stuff. New methods at work. I think that Susie says, I don't think it's original because it's just stealing. I don't think it is stealing, but I love introducing new methods at work, like pre-mortems. That is what Adam Grant says this is all about. It's take something that already exists somewhere else, but you're doing it in a new way with the team you're in. So let's take the pressure about originality being everything being brand new, and we can absolutely steal, borrow, build. They're like the good words here. Great, you've got loads of things, everybody. So we are all already being original in our work. What I wanted to do is share some of the ideas that Sarah and I took from what we'd read to help you to do it even more, and maybe to help you help other people do it even more. So first thing, Adam Grant talks about these 4 factors for originality, and they're almost like sub-skills, I suppose. So I'm going to talk them through, and then I'm going to get you to vote on which one do you think you have the most opportunity to develop. Okay, so which of these sub-skills do you think you could focus on a bit more? Let me talk them through first, and then I'm going to give you the instructions for how to vote. So sub-skill number 1 was taking initiative. So Adam Grant says that people who demonstrate higher levels of originality are skilled at demonstrating initiative. They sort of run with the ball. They do something that's not been done before. Second sub-skill, curiosity. So people who demonstrate originality, they question a lot, they learn from different people in different places, and they do that very proactively. They're collecting and connecting dots. Sub-skill number 3, which I thought was interesting, people who are original and successful with their originality take considered risk. Now, this is an interesting one. He talked about a lot of people think that, entrepreneurs are, they have high levels of originality, but the most successful entrepreneurs, so the people whose original ideas are the most successfully implemented, they're not the riskiest people. They're not the people who just do it for the sake of doing it, or just try it out and who cares if it fails. Actually, successful originality, so when ideas are implemented and they result in improvement, are people who kind of weigh it up a little bit. They consider the timing, they consider the opportunity cost. So there's a level of sort of consideration of the pros and the cons, for example. And I'll give you a good example of this morning. I was thinking about, see what you think to this, everybody. I was thinking about, should PodPlus be done in the future as a LinkedIn Live? So should we stop trying to get everyone on Zoom and should we just do it as a LinkedIn Live? And someone in my team was like, let's just try it, let's just do it. And I said, no, we need to consider this because I think there are advantages. More people would see PodPlus. And I think there are some disadvantages, which is that it might not feel like such a close and intimate community. So I think we need to think about it a bit more. That is an example of me having had an idea this morning and then considering the risk of it before I implement it. So that's where we go with that. You can let me know your opinion, everyone. And the last one is experimentation. So people who are kind of more original in their approach are more skilled at experimenting. And part of the sort of reason here is that they are prepared to fail. So Adam Grant talks about the risk of an achievement orientation. So people who have a very strong achievement orientation, sometimes they're like it means they don't love failing, and it's being prepared to fail is a big part of being able to experiment. So they are the 4 sub skills he talks about. I'm just chatting. So I'm just catching up on all your chat. No, please say this. Okay, right. Okay, no one seems to like the LinkedIn Live option. Good feedback, everybody. Thank you. What I would love you to do is use the voting. Regular PodPlusers, you will know what to do. Everyone else, I'll tell you how to do this in a second. What I want you to do is take a star put it on my screen with the sub skill you think you could develop more. So almost like your biggest opportunity area, one that you think, do you know what? If that makes up originality, I could do with focusing on that one a bit more. Everybody that's new, the way people are putting these stars on my screen is they're going to the top of their Zoom and they are clicking view options, then annotate, then stamp, and then star. Sarah in the team has popped those instructions into chat. And if any of you can't do it because of how you've joined or you're on a phone, please don't worry. But it's just a way that we can just quickly get a sense of where we're all at. Interesting, everybody. Experimentation, really interesting. So we've done a podcast on that topic. Whilst I'm talking, if somebody in the Squiggly Career team could find a link to that one, that'd be brilliant. So if experimentation is the area you could do with a bit more support on, we have covered it. So it might be worth a listen. It might be worth you kind of prioritizing that in terms of your development. Okay, cool. Right, everybody, I am going to get rid of all of your lovely, lovely stars and hearts, and we will keep going with our learning. And so that was the first thing, the sub skills, and maybe kind of focusing on one of those, the sort of the foundations for our originality. Second thing, and this came from the book that Sarah read, Corporate Rebels, which she absolutely loved. I was at a spa with Sarah on Friday for her birthday, and most of the time was Sarah talking about all of the ideas she'd had for our business from this book. I was like, stop reading. No, it wasn't. They were brilliant. But this idea of involve and don't solve. So don't try and do this all on your own. Your ideas will go further and probably faster if you bring other people into it. And some of the different ways that you can do that are be really transparent with your ideas. So we were reading about some leaders, for example, that put all their ideas into like an open wiki. The example was, what was the company? Oh, Warby Parker, the cool glasses company. And they put all the ideas for like, what should the business do? What products and services should we offer? Like into this just open wiki. And so it was transparent to employees and everyone could up and down vote them, which I thought was quite a cool way of just making sure that you get your ideas out quickly, you don't hold them too tightly, and also you get fast feedback. So I thought that was quite a cool way of doing it. The other thing that we've talked about before on podcasts is this idea of challenge and build. So you put an idea out and you don't take it too far. So I don't go, oh, I've got a great new idea for the podcast, and I sort of squirrel away on my own and build it and prototype it, and then I present the finished version, and then I get really upset when other people criticize it. You basically put it out for review earlier than that, when you're a bit less attached to it, and you kind of give people the permission to challenge your ideas. But with that challenge also has to come a build. So I think it would be even better if, Helen, ... And I've always found challenge and builds to be a really good way of taking control of critique. So you don't feel like it's coming from nowhere, because you're asking that person, you're putting that time in the diary. And so for me, it's always made me a lot less sensitive about other people feeding back on an idea that I've got, because I feel sort of more in control of that process. Yeah, Nicola, I always get too attached. I got taught this whole challenge and build thing when I was working at Eon on innovation, and I was working in an innovation team that was sort of separate to the sort of normal business, and there was quite a lot of cynicism about what the team was doing. And rather than get really defensive, I would have regular challenge and build sessions with different senior people in the core business so that I could basically hear and invite their critique. But because I was in control of it, I didn't feel like it was coming at me from nowhere, and it didn't derail me unexpectedly like in a meeting, because I'd proactively invited it. It was really helpful. Cool. I'm glad you like these. Yeah, Katie, it's a really good way of taking control of it. Similar with feedback generally, to be honest. I think the more you ask for feedback, so the more you say, oh, what could I do even better if in my next PodPlus, the more in control of it I am, the less unexpected it is. So I think it's the same generally if you're sensitive about feedback. So with this in mind, involve, don't solve. Sarah will kill me for doing this, by the way. She doesn't know I'm doing this. Part of the chat that Sarah and I had on Friday was our next book. She will absolutely kill me. Don't tell Sarah, everybody. And so I thought, well, rather than like solve what our next book is, I would involve you as a community in it. So here are 3 ideas. This might not be what we do, everybody, but here are 3 ideas that Sarah and I are just sort of exploring about what our next book might be. I thought I would share the idea, and then you get to vote on the one that you would be most likely to read. Okay, and then we'll come back to this in a second. So idea number 1. I'm not emotionally attached to any of these, everybody. So you get 1 star, 1 vote. Idea number 1, Squiggly Sprints. It is a book with sort of 12 ideas for action. So over a year, you could accelerate your career. So there'll be like 12 sprints, 1 for each month. You can start any month you want, just have to start in January. But they're things like, a month sprint on building your brand, a month start on investing in your network, a month skill on future-proofing your talents, or something like that. And so there'll be lots of squiggly sprints. You can pick it up and put it down, but it's all about accelerating your career. Idea 1. Idea 2, the Squiggly Career Coach. So we've done the Squiggly Career, which is help individuals. This one is to help you help other people. It's tools and techniques, whether you're a manager, a mentor, a coach, or someone's colleague, so that you can help other people be their best at work. So idea number 2. Slight panic, everyone. Sarah's just come into the room. Idea number 3, Squiggly Career Conversations. This book is all about helping you map the most important career conversations you will need to have in your squiggly career, and helping you plan, prepare, and be confident in those conversations. Almost like some sort of squiggly scripts and scenarios and things to help you get ready for them. Okay, Victoria, not allowed all 3 ideas. 1 vote, everybody. 1 vote. We're involving, not solving. Let us know which one of these books would you be most likely to read. Sarah's just coming to the room, everybody. She's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You come say hi. Okay. So anyone that can't do it, interesting. So based on all of your insight, everybody, it looks like, what do you reckon? Is number 3 the most popular? Don't know. I'll let you keep going. On that insight, you need to do them all. I don't think we've got time to do them all. Maria, I won't. That's a very good question. I'm going to save all of your comments, everybody, because I can't read them all now. But I would say quick scan. It's either 2 or 3. Brilliant. All right. Yes, number 3 and the rest in podcast, please. Thanks, Dorota, very specific. Okay, so this isn't genuinely about our next book. It's more about the idea of originality, but I wanted to use that as an example of involving, don't solving. So next point, I'm going to clear all of your stars. Thank you for getting involved in that. Showing your thinking. So this one is about when you have an idea, like you put an idea forward, an original thought, or you're feeding back on somebody else's original idea, like a book or a project or whatever it is. Adam Grant in Originals talks about avoiding saying, oh, I love that idea, or I hate that idea, because it's quite emotive and it's indicative of an instant feeling. But what he says is more valuable is if you explain why you like it. So rather than going, oh, Sarah, I love your idea, I would say, I love it because ... So we're going to practice your skills, everybody. Whichever your option was, 1, 2, or 3, explain your thinking. What was your because? Why did you vote for that one? You think that one is better because, and if you've already written that, brilliant, that's great. But you get the idea. I'm trying to basically get some insight from you and help you to practice this as well, rather than, he talks about if you're having a team review of ideas, ban, I love it and I hate it, and kind of really sort of make people explain and show their thinking. I think that one's the best because, or I don't like that one because, get that level of detail in. So I'm going to let you practice that very quickly. I like the idea of 12 actions to accelerate your career. Oh, you have so many comments, everyone. As it will give me some tangible actions broken down to bite-sized chunks. Brilliant. So this idea of explaining. I love the idea of squiggly sprints. Fantastic. Brilliant, everyone. So it's just, thank you for the feedback. The bigger point for you is that we're trying to get rid of this instant emotive response and give people a bit more detail, explain our thinking about why we like something, because it also gives people more insight that they can build on. And that goes on to my last point that I wanted to make today, which is another one from Adam Grant, which is about idea selection. So he talks about, normally when people are being original and they're having ideas, particularly in a team environment, what happens is you have like the ideas. So people present the ideas, a bit like I've done for you today. Here are my ideas. And then once you've got the ideas, you say, oh God, we need to review all these ideas. Like how do we pick which one is best? And so you come up with a bit of a criteria. Oh, well, it's got to be one that, feels like it's useful to people. It's got to be one that we can implement by the end of the month. It's got to be one that can come in within this budget. You almost create a criteria, and then you use that criteria to then select which idea is best. That is a very normal process that happens when people are taking an original idea and then working out how they're going to implement it. But he says what that does is it basically reduces the originality, because you get more and more and more critical, and you start very original with the ideas, but then you sort of get rid of it along the way. And so what he says is a better thing to do, either if you're trying to pick which is your own idea that's best, or in a team environment, is you start with the criteria. So if we're going to do something, what are we going to measure this against? So the budget, the time, the people, whatever it is. Then you do all the ideas, and then you do the review, because he says what happens then is people are because they're staying creative for longer, like their brains, in that curious state that we talked about with those 4 foundations, there's more building that happens. So because I'm not just using the criteria and just going, well, it's got to tick these boxes, there's much more building. Oh, I like your idea, Sarah. And if we, that kind of thing. So you sort of build on it more, which I thought was just useful. So if you've got anything idea-y going on in teams at the moment, maybe just think about this idea selection flow rather than the default one that might be how it's happening at the moment. Okay, so everyone, that was all I was going to say today. Couple of other points. The pod sheet. So you can always get the pod sheet that summarizes the corporate Red Bulls ideas and insights, and also the originality one. Pod sheets are always available on our website. So go to amazingif.com podcast page, and you can just click on the podcast and you will find it. On that page as well, you can sign up for pod mail. Pod mail is the email that comes out every Tuesday and basically makes your life easier, because we put everything, the pod note, the podcast link, the pod sheet, all in one place. And so if you want it in your inbox, I would sign up for pod mail. Any other thoughts or comments? We have 3 minutes before the end. Any other thoughts or comments before we go? Useful reframe, Katie says. Hello, Steve. So your name for the first time. Protect people about having a really good idea and getting it done. Fantastic. Okay. I think we will leave it there for today, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing. Hope you have found that useful. Hope you'll be back next week for our episode on critical thinking, for our books that we have done on that. I'm going to, because look, you're the PodPlus community, I'm going to let you know. So I read Framers, and Sarah read a brand new book from Harvard Business Review on critical thinking that's out next month, that we are in. Hooray! Our very first article that we wrote for Harvard Business Review managed to get in that book. We don't talk about that one because that'd be very narcissistic. We talk about all the other things that are in that book. But have a lovely weekend, as Victoria says, and hope to see lots of you back next time. Bye for now, everybody. Take care. Have a good rest of